What's up, guys? So today I am going to yet another living room / great room area to film and record some drums. So because my last video with me recording my living room turned out so good, I am now going to my in-laws' house, which is fortunately only like 5 minutes away from us. And so I'm gonna go record in their space. It's definitely different. It has a tile floor. And so I'm assuming we're gonna get like a brighter, probably even bigger sound than what I got at my house. But anyways, we will see very shortly. Of course, going to try a whole bunch of different microphones too. Brought a couple of different snare drums with. Gonna try some different tunings, some different mic techniques. Gonna do like mono rooms. We're gonna try stereo rooms. I have condensers with me. I have dynamics with me. So gonna try a little bit of everything. Plus, I even brought a bunch of different, well, I wouldn't say a bunch. I brought some different selections of mic pre's as well. We are here. So this is where we're going to be recording today. Big L-shaped, like great room, kitchen, living room area. Okay, so now that we're in the space, it is much more reverberant in here than I thought. Let me do this real quick. So it's kind of like good and bad. I mean, it's good because it'll be some very roomy and live sounding drums. Bad part is it almost seems like it's going to be too much. So here is my thought to kind of cut down on it. Now, of course, I'm going to experiment over the next like 3-4 days with the room sounds, but here's what I'm thinking. Okay, so I'm going to record here. This is right where I just loaded in. So I'm just going to put the drums right here because I kind of have this like space, to the right and to the left. And this is a good spot for some room mics and stereo. Now, I think it's, like I was mentioning, it's too reverberant here with the tile, but in this living room, we have carpet and some couches. So if you hear, it's definitely not as reverberant over here. So I think this is a good spot for one room mic. And then if we continue over here, in the bedroom here, once again, carpet and a mattress, and this is a little smaller room. So I think when we are recording over there, that'll be a good place for these room mics. Gonna experiment, I'm gonna try some stuff out. So let's get this stuff set up and let's start getting some sounds together so I can better understand the space. Because like I said, over the next 3-4 days, I wanna kind of like experiment with drum sounds today, and then tomorrow like do the big series recording based on what I think sounds good and also, what I want. Okay, so for room mics, here are my two stands. They're about 2 feet high and they will be placed in the corner, like facing away from the drums. So for room microphones though, I have 2 Blue Bluebirds. We're gonna try these as room mics. And then I have 2 Rode NT1As. And then also some very inexpensive Marantz MPM 1000s. This is actually what I used in the last video, the big fat living room drums. I just used one, but this was the room microphone that you guys heard. And then I really liked what the close mic sounded in the last video, the big fat living room drums. So I'm gonna try it again. It's just a Slate mic. I didn't use any of their emulations or even their mic pre, which I do own, but I didn't use it. So it's just gonna be this straight into the mic pre and then record it. And yeah, we'll see what it sounds like in here. Okay, so here is the drum kit setup. This is a 1969 Ludwig with a Yamaha, I think it's a 6.5 inch snare drum. And then I also have a super sensitive down there. I think it's a 69 or a 70 snare drum. And then for the hi-hats, these are some old Zildjians with holes at the bottom. So this is the drum kit, and once again, this is kind of like the look. You can see that's where the one room mic's gonna be, and the other one down there with the cables. And then of course, to record, I got my little laptop recording with the Army Babyface Pro FS. So we're gonna be using the two mic pre's built into here, and then this has input 3 and 4, and I'm gonna be running a couple of Black Lion audio mic pre's. The B173 is gonna be on kick, though I might change that, and then the B12A will be on snare. I'm not using the compressor or de-esser, at least, you know, to start. Might patch that in later. This is a little setup, and then I got my Apple AirPods, or whatever the hell they're called. I use these the most because I'm the most familiar with these, so I like to bring them with, just so I can monitor some stuff and listen back. Okay, so got the room mics set up in the very far corners. I think it's gonna be too big sounding, but we'll see. And then I got the Slate mic on the kick drum, and then SM57 for the snare slash hi-hat, but it's kind of pulled back. But anyways, let's take a listen to this. Okay, got my drum kit set up here. I have a room mic way down there and another one way in there. Here's the kick drum. Here's the snare drum. Hi-hat. Okay, so you heard that sound. I mean, I don't know what to think. I actually really like it, you know, blended in. I think with some transient designing, you can turn on the sustain a little bit, make those room mics maybe a little tighter. But what I actually really like is the snare sound. Sounds really, it's, you know, just on the top snare mic, it sounds really good. Like I like the snare sound. I actually like the kick drum sound through the snare mic. So anyways, this is always really tough for me to do, is come down to like what I want to do. Okay, so that is about it for today. Tracked a bunch of drums, got a bunch of drum samples. Might end up changing the mic pre's. That B12A thing, I have to crank the input on it, and it just honestly doesn't sound. It's got a hum buzz to it, and I don't love it. So might go grab my Army 12 mic and do it like that. So anyways, let's go back to the studio, and I'm gonna show you guys what it sounds like processed. Okay, so obviously we're in the studio now. So I have like 3 different ways I'm gonna show you guys what all this sounds like. First, we're just gonna listen to the drums, it's totally raw. Then I'll throw a quick compressor on there just to give you a little bit overall sound of this stuff. Then we're gonna cut over to the actual drum samples that I created while I was there. Then you'll hear just the raw samples, and then I will actually put them into a track, you know, align them all, and then show you guys what it sounds like. So first, here's the raw drums. Okay, so not bad. It's it sounds good. You know, obviously there's an enormous amount of room going on in there. I don't have any microphones actually on the hi-hat, so I'm kind of getting some of the hi-hat from the snare mic and from the room kind of together. definitely not my favorite recording situation ever. But anyways, let's just take a listen now. I'm going to put a compressor on the drums. We'll listen to what that does to the overall sound of all 4 mics together. So it's a pretty big difference. That's just one compressor on the drum bus. So I just routed all 4 microphones together to the same bus, put this plug-in on there, and then this is the result. So it sounds better. It's kind of not making that hi-hat so harsh. It's kind of pushing the drums in and out, kind of makes that kick stand out a little bit more. Once again, not my favorite sound. So now we're going to go to the individual samples. I'll let you guys listen to what those sound like with processing, and those definitely sound much better. Okay, so first we have just the kick drum. So, I mean, those sound pretty monstrous. If we look at our actual kick drum channels. So first I have the drum leveler on here. What this does is any of the inconsistencies of the hits, it's actually trying to like automatically gain match them in a way. It also has a gate on there. So let's just take a listen to this really quick. So it's obviously nicely pulling down also that some of that noise that we brought up in there. And then we have the Softube console 1. So doing some shaping, shaving off a little of the sustain, doing this like low end roll off, a little bump here at 78 hertz, cutting out 321 and kind of doing an overall like shelving thing here with some compression. So that is that, and then we have just a clipper plugin at the very end. What's really nice with this, it sounds very transparent, especially on snare drum. You can really crank this thing and you really don't hear it. Sorry, apparently there's an ambulance outside. So then that is blended together with the room sound. So here's the room sound. And so with the room sound, I'm using the Devil-loc. And really only doing this a little bit, just one on crush and one on crunch. And then I just have an EQ to kind of take out some of that low end. Just don't really need that low end in the room mics. We're getting all that from the close mic. So that is the actual kick drum. And then there is some drum bus processing. So the kick, snare, and hi-hat are all getting this. This is the Kramer master tape. I have the speed slower here so that kind of shaving off some of the brightness on that. Then I wanted apparently more tape. And this is also going to be on the snare drum too. So remember these settings. So here we got this thing full color on type C. Then we have the Softube Weiss MM-1 digital maximizer, which is kind of like a limiter, the way that we're using it. Really bringing up a lot of impact with this. And then finally, we have the good old SSL Bus comp. And this is on 30 millisecond attack, so the slowest, and then the release is the fastest. Just some nice compression, bringing up that overall, sound of the room as well. Okay, so that is the kick drum. So now let's go to the snare drum. Pretty monstrous, awesome sounding snare. The room is crazy good in this. Just the close mic of the snare. A lot of that room's already in there. Okay, so for the processing on this, we have the Softube Console 1 again. Once again, shaving off some sustain, adding some punch this time. Kind of doing a similar EQ, kind of finding that fundamental of the actual snare and boosting that. Taking out a little bit of 534, and then actually kind of shaving off some of the top end on this, and then doing some compression here. Without the EQ. Thin. So then once again, the clipper. You can hear it's taken off a little bit of the attack on here. Got that. And then apparently I needed to add another EQ here. Yeah, you can hear this right here, this 1100 actually fattens up the snare and then pulling out this 4.5, little bitey there. And then just doing a little bit of bump again back at that fundamental. So then once again, all this goes through the Kramer master tape, the Softube tape, and the limiter, which probably makes the biggest difference. A lot of impact, but it also sounds good without this. So it just depends on what you want to go for. And then once again, the SSL Bus comp. Let's blend in those rooms as well, though. Definitely more controlled with this. And then I just did the exact same thing again. I did create a separate bus for these rooms. If we just listen to just the rooms by themselves, just for the snare. Once again, taking on a lot of low end, and then a bunch of top end too this time to get that room to sound the way it does when it's blended in. Big, impactful, sounds really, really nice. Love this. I thought this like 40-foot room mics that were 40 feet away was going to be too much, but it actually sounds very nice. And then we just have the hi-hats. Not really doing much here, just taking off some low end. And then a little soothe on hi-hats, one of my favorite things. I mean, it's not much of a difference. Okay, so now that you've heard all of those sounds, so now what I did is I went back and I actually chopped up all of these samples. I cut them with their respective rooms. So we have the kick up top there. Here's the snare. And then 2 sets of hi-hats because I wanted them to bleed over the top of each other. So it's just, this is one hi-hat. This is a softer hi-hat. And you can see they're just the way they're spaced. And then I put it back in that original track that I was recording with. Take a listen to this. So this is with all the processing on there. Everything has its own room on here. So let's just take a listen. And then without any of the music, I mean, the room sounds monstrous. That tile floor, I think, really kind of helped, give this bright space. Didn't love the actual full recording of the drum kit being played all together, but the samples and being able to, manipulate the room and the individual microphones really turned this into some great sounding kick and snare samples. Now, one thing I did want to mention is this is not like the same kick drum, just cut over and over and pasted. I take, between 4 and 8 different kick sounds, 4 and 8 different snares, depending on how many I actually like. And then cut those up and then arrange them so that it's just not the same sample over and over and over again, which of course you could do, but I like to have the variation to make it sound more like an actual real drum kit. Same thing with the hi-hat. So, just at least sounds like potentially a person played this. So guys, so not only do I make these YouTube videos, but I mix and master full time. So if you guys want your track mixed or mastered, you want me to put even drums in your song, all the info is down below. But guys, thank you very much for watching. Look for, I guess it's not technically a part 2, but it's going to be another recording session. Same place, but we're going to move the microphones and change things up and then do this whole thing again and just try to achieve some different results. So guys, thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.